There we are. That's just the ticket. So today I want to pick apart a brand new hit by Calvin Harris and also talk about the controversy between Calvin Harris and Chicane and whether or not he copied or plagiarized this classic track. Was it Saltwater or the other one? Offshore. So the question is, did he plagiarize this? Well, it's not quite that simple, as you'll see in a few minutes. So before we dig into this, I just want to say a huge shout out to our Accelerator students, in particular Cole, aka Synchronaut, who's released his first official track, which sounds amazing, and Gutrox, who's just been signed to a major label. You can hear their music playing at the moment. Now, for anyone who knows me, you know I love Calvin Harris's music, but I also love Chicane's music. It was really a big part of my formative years when it came to dance music, and he also lives on the Isle of Wight, which is my home. Extra bonuses. So, I want to pick apart, bit by bit, Blessings by Calvin Harris, and I want to show you how you can create something similar. I'm also going to share with you some lessons I've learned from both Calvin Harris and Chicane. So without further ado, let's hop into the door and get it done. So first things first, let's just get a kick on every beat. Boom, 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 want you in my room. Easy peasy. Next thing we want to do is working out the chord progression, knowing the key that this track is in. Now the track is in B minor natural, so we can create a basic grand piano on a MIDI channel. Then hit scale mode if you're using Ableton, and you'll see it's only showing the notes from within that scale, which makes it super simple. So for the first part of the track, it actually holds the root note, which is the B, just like that. But let's work out what the chord progression is for that fateful guitar riff, which we'll get to very shortly. So we go from the G to the E, and then we sustain on the B, which is the root note. So at the moment, and actually at the end of that chord progression, we go down to the D. So this is the bass progression from the track. Let's just have a listen to it. Doesn't sound very interesting at the moment, but it will in a few minutes, I absolutely guarantee it. And then we hold that. That's going to give you feels, guaranteed. So let's build out these chords. Easiest thing to do in scale mode is just skip a note each time. So the chord progression is this. But we don't actually have to use that piano sound, we're just going to use it to inform us where the notes in the other sounds are going to go. So next most important thing on our magic list is creating the bass. Now the bass is just a simple groove on the root note of the track to begin. So it sounds something like this. Now it's really easy to make. If you open up whichever synth you're using, all you need to do is select a saw wave, create an envelope that's got full sustain, and a little bit of decay and release, which is going to make it kind of fade out slightly, like that. But the beadier eyes of you will notice there's a second envelope there, and we've got a much shorter envelope programmed in, which we then assign to a low cut filter. So now we've got this effect. Gives you that plucky effect. I've also added a sub oscillator, just to add a little bit of beef in the low end. Now you'll see there's some processing on here too, but we're going to get to that later. The only one I'm going to turn on at the moment is the sidechain compressor, and this is so it ducks against the kick. So I've taken the input from our sidechain trigger track, which is just a short sharp rim shot that you never hear, set to sends only, and that's going to allow us to duck that bass line so it doesn't fight with the kick. As I said, we'll get to this other processing in a few minutes. Now you may have noticed as well that there's some swing applied to this. So if we take the swing off, and then add it, it just adds a little bit of groove to the track. So instead of going, the track's going, very important for this kind of old school feel. But now let's get on to the first bit of controversy. So most people are talking about this guitar riff, which we'll get to soon, but I was actually more interested in hearing this pluck riff, which sounds like this. Oh, doesn't it? Is that it? I'm not sure. I'll keep trying. Don't give it up. Well, no. Stop it. It sounds like this. So we can hear it's following the chord progression that we just programmed in. Oh, nice. So let's pick apart this sound and how I made it, or rather how Calvin made it. So it's very similar to the Dead Mouse pluck. All we've done is create another synth, and we've added a saw wave with a nice plucky shape again on the envelopes, which we can then assign the second one of which to the filter, like that. Add some unison to go from that to this, with a little bit of detune so it's nice and wide, and then let's add a second oscillator to add a little bit more character, again routing that to the filter. And then I've added a third one just down an octave to add a little bit more of interest in the harmonics. So for processing, we've added an EQ to take out the low end so it doesn't fight with the kick and the bass. Added a little bit of echo. And then we've got that sidechain compressor, which is going to come into play when the beats start. And then I've added a little bit of hall reverb on an auxiliary channel, which sounds freaking amazing. I love it. Okay, so now let's get on to one of the most important lessons, which is creating the drums that Calvin Harris has created. So one of the things I love most about his music is this notion of simplicity on the other side of complexity. So when we start music production, our music sounds really basic and a bit rubbish. And then we learn all these fancy new skills, and then we usually kind of overcook things and make them too complicated, try and cram too many ideas in a track. I've done it hundreds of times. But then the place that we strive to get to, which is what we actually teach in the Accelerator, is to be able to use these complex skills to just execute one or two basic ideas in a track and do it in a very nuanced and intentional way. So that's exactly what Calvin's done on the drums here. So let's go back to listening to the drums and listen to the loop that we've created. One by one, we've got the kick, then we've got the drums. So let's go through all of that one by one. So it sounds like a basic drum loop, but really what's happening is we've got the main clap with a little bit of room reverb sent out to the auxiliary channel. So this is off, really dry. That just gives it a bit more body. Second, we've got an open hat. So using classic sounds as well is a great thing that Calvin does. There's no point reinventing the wheel. If that 909 open hat does the job, then it does the job. However, that's not all that's going on. We've also got this open hat, this closed hat, just adding a bit more bite. So this is careful layering. And then we've got these other sounds in there as well. Yet another hat, so that's 3 hats layered up. 16th hat. So let's listen to that on its own. A little bit of chorus to blur it and make it sound a bit more special. A little bit of EQ, take out the low end, and then a sidechain compressor to have it bounce against the kick. So what else have we got going on? We've got a very, very quiet shaker. It's just doing this. Can barely hear it. And we've also got this, which I'm really proud of. I actually programmed in this skippy loop. We're using different velocities, and on its own it sounds like this. And you can hear the groove applied to it. So it's the difference between that and that. But what I've done is I've assigned the velocity to the frequency cutoff, and then I've put different velocities for some of those notes. So some of them, the frequency is going to be cut off lower, and some of them it's going to be opened up more. So you get this really nice crunchy sound when you push it with the drive and add a little bit of resonance. So all together, it sounds like this. But it doesn't even stop there. We've actually layered up a couple of drum loops too. So I got this one from a sample pack, and I basically got rid of everything apart from 2 beats worth of this loop. That's it. And then I just loop that. And I've filtered out the low end, and this is what it adds to the beats. And then the last one I was really pleased with, and I only heard this when I listened to the extended mix of the track. And I've got this loop here going, which I actually got from Loop Cloud. And if you want to sponsor the channel, you can use my affiliate link below. But what I've done, I've really crazed this up. So I've pitched it. That's how it started. And I've pitched it up 31 semitones. So it sounds like this weird glitchy matrix scream, which you can barely hear. But it just adds texture. And now the last thing I'm going to do to make these drums really pop is to add this drum bus, which is going to add a little bit of saturation. It's going to add a little bit of drive, and I'm going to add a little bit of boom on the low end for the kick. Right, so check the difference this makes. Already sounds good. Now check this out. Nice. So you really should then take down the output so you can do a fair test. Like, does it sound better or just louder? I like the way it actually grunges it up. So now we've got our drums sounding really cool. If we add another drum bus onto the bass, we can add some boom there. So let's listen to that. This is the bass as it stands. Let's add some drum bus. Just adds more resonance and body. So now we've got this for the kick and the drums. Just add some more resonance and body. So now we've got this for the drums and the bass. Really nice groove. And I've assigned this swing to all of the elements in the track as well. Okay, on to the next thing. We have got to get to that amazing guitar pluck riff, which has caused so much controversy between Chicane, aka Nick Bracegirdle, and Calvin Harris, aka Adam Wiles. So let's have a listen to that guitar riff, and then I'm going to show you how to make something similar. This is what we've got so far. Oops, no, that's not it. Maybe it's this. No, that's not it either. Maybe it's this. Getting there. There we go. Now, I'm kind of taking the piss a bit, okay? My point is, I actually don't think this is plagiarism at all, because that's just a nylon guitar and it's a couple of notes. And yeah, I think it would be disingenuous to say that Calvin hasn't been inspired by Offshore. Absolutely. And that's one of the key lessons here. Everyone gets inspiration from everything else in the world. And it's a wonderful thing. It means we can take inspirations, craft it into something that's unique and our own, which is a very different thing from straight up ripping someone off. Also, you got to factor in that dance music is actually based on sampling, which is taking things from other people. So actually, I think this track Blessings is like more of an homage to an absolutely seminal dance track from the 90s. I don't think it's plagiarism, because then, as we heard, that Guitar G track sounds similar as well, and a whole bunch others, and that's fine. So how do you actually create something like that? Well, I don't have the same guitar sound as Calvin Harris, and actually probably he played it in because he's got loads of instruments in his studio, but this is what I did to create something pretty similar. So I programmed in the MIDI notes using the exact same chord progression that we worked out on the piano, because we're just trying to have one chord progression going throughout the whole track. We're not trying to overcomplicate things. We're just using that simplicity on the other side of complexity. So I actually loaded in a contact patch because it was the only decent guitar sound I had on my hard drive, nylon guitar, and that on its own sounds like this, which is a big difference from what we ended up with, right? There's a couple of reasons for that. Couple of reasons indeed, my brother. I don't know what I'm talking about today, honestly, but if you're enjoying it, give me a hell yeah, or an amen, brother, if you're feeling holy. So first thing I did with that guitar was add a little bit of delay, and that is going to add some stereo width. This is called the Haas effect. Listen to the difference. Now, the way that you do that is go to ping pong mode in whichever delay you're using, and then we need a really, really fast delay time. So I've used 1 millisecond on the left and 13 milliseconds on the right. Now, it's always good to check this in mono because you can get weird phase cancellation. What's really happening is that we're having that signal played twice, once out the left speaker, once out the right speaker, and in mono it sounds like this. And let's turn it off. So there's a slight difference, but it's pretty good. This is what happens if you get it wrong. Add too much or too little. You get a phasing sound. So that sounds good to me. And actually we want a little bit of kind of brum type effect, because we want the effect of someone playing a guitar and they're not going to hit all the strings at exactly the same time. And then I just added a bit of EQ. So now we've got this. A little bit of body. And then I doubled that up. I just duplicated that whole channel. And then I used this nylon guitar from Ableton itself, just to add a little bit of low end body layered up. So that's off. Doesn't make much difference. But again, careful layering is something that Calvin is expert at, as we already saw with the drums. Now, this is the magic. This is the secret sauce. So at the moment, we got that pretty cool riff. Now let's look at the processing I've done when I bust them together. So the first thing I want them to do is sound a little bit more aggressive. So I've added a compressor. With quite a fast attack and a very fast release. And it really just brings out the transients. Now let's add a little bit of EQ, bring out the top end. So you can hear the strings and the grit. A little bit of echo. Ooh, Balearic. And now I've added, no, I've got an ozone imager. Let's turn it off, we don't need that. And then I've got another sidechain compressor so it can duck against the kick. And this, my pedigree chums, is what happens when it all comes together in one beautiful smorgasbord of musical goodness. Before we share the final result, I want to share with you these lessons that I learned from Calvin Harris and Chicane and that I think are going to help you too. So number one, remember, simplicity on the other side of complexity is what we're going for. We don't want to try and cram loads of different ideas into one track. We want to have a simple idea that's executed with complexity, nuance and precision to get the best idea. And that's exactly the kind of stuff we teach you how to do in the Accelerator program. Second, everyone takes inspiration from everywhere. It's a good thing. I'm not going to harp on about it again, but if you want to get in trouble for plagiarism, copy a melody, sample something so blatantly, and barely make any changes to it. Using the same sounds or having clear inspiration isn't plagiarism. Number three, tell a story over the arrangement of the track. You don't need to cram in loads of different ideas, but by using careful layering and automation, you can make a simple idea stay interesting for 4, 5, or 6 minutes. Number four, classic sounds work wonders. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. If you're making tech house, a 909 kick, 909 clap, and open hat can be exactly what the doctor ordered. Just ask James Hype or Calvin Harris, as in this example. And number five, something that we didn't touch upon that I'm going to show you in a minute is that Calvin Harris actually brings in some kind of dub funk guitar to this track, as he's been doing for the last few years anyway. And by combining two different styles, you can join the list of producers like Timbaland, David Guetta, Calvin Harris, Diplo, and really any number of producers who have created something that sounds fresh just because they've combined two different influences. And finally, number six, don't give it up. Let's start off near the beginning and hear what it sounds like when the pluck comes in. And then we're going to go to the drop. Now you'll see what this EQ's for in a minute. And I've added a secondary bass as well, which we'll get to in a few seconds. I should have some cymbal crashes in here, and we're going to get a vocal. Oh yeah, let's get a vocal. I'm just going to open up Splice for this and search for female vocal, key, B minor, bum 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 bum. I'm going to put the other one in there because it's fun. Hee. Stop stirring up trouble, Will. Yes, melee. Melee? That's not the word. Let's get a vocal.
I feel like you're hostage, now your lover, hidden under covers. You only love me when you wake up.
Yes, I'm gonna have that. I'll have you, son. I'm just riffing now. Here we go. There we are. That's just a ticket. Let's get those vocals in there. Right, so 110. Let's make that warp correctly. 110. Now I just get excited, see? Calm down. Let's turn the reverb on. No, don't like those vocals. I love everything else though. Okay, cool. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm actually going to give you this project file. I hope I don't get in trouble though, because it's blatantly a rip-off. Maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Should I give this away? I feel like I ought not to, because of the MIDI is blatantly not mine. So yeah, let me know in the comments. And if you want coaching to get your music to a professional level and released on some of the world's biggest labels like many of our other students, check out the Music Production Accelerator below. And if you want to take this notion of using other people's stuff for inspiration, learning how to remix is an excellent skill. So I've created this video here. There's still time to enter this competition and win literally thousands of dollars worth of cool prizes. It's how I got started. It's how Calvin Harris got started actually. So thanks for watching. Check out this video and I'll catch you over there.